We're going to look at the double angle formulas for sine, cosine, and tangent today. So the first thing we're going to do is actually derive them, and we can derive them using the sum and difference formulas that we learned previously. So to use the sine addition formula on this, the sine of the quantity x plus x, this means that you are taking the sine of the first angle x times the cosine of the second angle, which also happens to be x, plus you are adding in the cosine of the first angle times the sine of the second. So sine times cosine and cosine times sine are the same thing. I could write them so that they're both sine times cosine. So you really have two sine x times cosine x's. Now, since the sine of x plus x is the same thing as the sine of x plus x is 2x, what we just figured out is the sine of 2x is 2 times the sine of x cosine of x. So this is the sine double angle formula. So the sine of 2x is equal to 2 times the sine of x times the cosine of x. We can do the same thing for the cosine formula, double angle formula. So the cosine of x plus x is the cosine of the first angle times the cosine of the second angle, which is also x, and then minus the sine of the first angle times the sine of the second angle. Cosine times cosine is cosine squared, minus sine times sine is sine squared. Since the cosine of the quantity x plus x is the same thing as the cosine of 2x, then this is the double angle formula for cosine. So the cosine of 2x equals cosine squared of x minus sine squared of x. Now, depending on what is given to you, sometimes it's easier to use a different version of this exact same formula. So there's actually 3 versions of the cosine double angle formula, and they all stem from the fact that we still have this Pythagorean identity, the fact that sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. So if you wanted to, you could take this, you could solve for sine squared, and you could say that sine squared of x equals 1 minus cosine squared. Or you could have solved for cosine squared and said that that equals 1 minus sine squared. And I'm going to show you how this is helpful in finding the other two. So again, if we knew that the cosine of 2x equals cosine squared of x minus sine squared of x, we could take one of these, let's say if we took the sine squared of x, and we could simplify it in a different way by substituting in for the sine squared 1 minus cosine squared. So we could say this is cosine squared of x minus, and then where we have sine squared, I'm going to plug in 1 minus cosine squared. And since it's a quantity, I'm going to put it in parentheses. So this would be cosine squared of x minus 1 plus cosine squared of x, which means really we would have 2 cosine squared of x minus 1. So this is a formula for cosine of 2x, but so is this. And this can be helpful depending on what you're given. If you are given the cosine of x, then this formula makes sense to use. You don't even need to have the sine of x. So this formula can be beneficial at different times. So in the same way, again, we can start with cosine squared minus sine squared. And this time, I'm going to replace cosine squared with something. And from our Pythagorean identity, we know that cosine squared is 1 minus sine squared. So where I see cosine squared here, I'm going to plug in 1 minus sine squared. And then we still have minus another sine squared, which means this simplifies to 1 minus 2 sine squared of x. And this equation is going to be beneficial if you're trying to find the cosine of 2x, but you were given the sine of x. Then you don't need both the sine of x and the cosine of x. So having all 3 of these different versions can just be helpful based on what information is given to you to simplify the problem a little bit and not require so many steps. So then the last one that we have is the tangent of 2x. So since the tangent of 2x, the double angle formula, is the same as the tangent of x plus x, We can use the sum formula, which is the tangent of x plus the tangent of x over 1 minus the tangent of x times the tangent of x. Well, adding the tangent of x plus the tangent of x is 2 times the tangent of x over 1 minus tangent of x times tangent of x. Order of operations says we multiply first, so that's going to be tangent squared. So 1 minus tangent squared of x. So that means that the tangent of 2x, so the tangent double angle formula, is going to equal 2 times the tangent of x divided by 1 minus the tangent squared of x. So in the next video, I will show you how to actually utilize these.